side, of coaching is really, really important as well. What do you guys got for me? How was that? What do you think?
Good. That's very interesting for me. Yeah.
What do you take home from that, or what do you think in terms of that, Chrissy? Obviously, you're the trainer who does this the most here. I think that Taylor's probably the other person that would have been nice to have him on here.
Well, I guess I've like gone through so many different workouts, just like personally, just different classes, and growing up an athlete, and then being in the gym and seeing what other trainers do, and working with Fizz and see how they do it. So it's good to like actually break it down and see like what's going to be the most effective way for helping someone reach their training goals,
Right. Yeah, and I have all this in the book, so I'm going to be done with it very soon. So you guys will have it. I'll probably just give it to you in the ebook format, PDF type of situation. So it has everything. It has almost everything in it from this entire PowerPoint presentation stuff that I've been doing with you guys. And then I'm eventually going to put this somewhere so you guys can get it too if you want to listen to it and review it. I'll probably put it on YouTube and then put it somewhere else so you guys can get it as well. It's probably easier to access. Are you guys cool with that? Are you guys cool with me putting this on YouTube? I kind of figured you would be. It wouldn't matter that much, but I didn't think anybody would be totally against it. No, you think your guys are okay with that too?
Yeah,
from the previous one. Yeah. Anything else, Chrissy?
I like what you said about everyone's got 10 minutes each day to get moving.
Yeah.
I know that's something that's like hard. As a trainer, it's like the expectation is that your client signed up and they're paying you to do all the work in the 2 hours a week, 3 hours a week that you see them. And it's like, that's just not really, that's not physically possible. Like you have to do stuff outside of here or you're not going to get results. Yeah.
Yeah, and that helps them to form that habit, right? So being able to do 10 minutes a day, next thing you know, 10 minutes leads to 20 minutes and whatever. And also being in that habit of not making excuses. Yeah, and it really started with me. A couple years ago, I was just I wasn't consistent with what I was doing. And I was like, dude, it's funny because I'll tell you the story real quick. I had been out, and basically I got in the shower and I came out, and Xander said, "Hey Daddy, let's do this thing." I was doing this thing called the stair challenge, right? And I was running the stairs with Xander, and he asked me to do it right after I worked out. And my initial thing was no, right? I was like, oh, I don't want to do it because I'm going to get hurt or whatever. And he walked away kind of sad. And I was like, what, dude? What is your problem? You know what I mean? Like I went back in the bathroom, and I was looking in the mirror. I'm like, did you just do that? What? Right? And it created this like mental break that I had. And that was where I started going, no, look, you're going to do something every day. You're not going to say no. You're going to say yes, and you're going to move forward with this. You're going to get something, and you have no excuses, right? There's no reason why you can't get 10 minutes in, right? So cool. I'm glad that was a good take home. Any of the other guys got anything?
I had a quick question. So going back to, I think it was on the finisher slide, you talked about like it's better to someone do a plank for 10 seconds that they do it correctly rather than do it 20 seconds and have it 5 or 10 seconds they're not doing it right. How would that change necessarily if you have, like, say you're on both PT and fitness sides, if it's like, say, an athlete you're rehabbing, that your timeline has to be quicker, or maybe it's someone who comes in and they're like, I have a way shorter timeline, I want to reach my goals. I guess from the athlete standpoint, is it more of a idea that even if you're doing those 10-second planks with correct form, maybe an athlete has a higher floor, so they're going to be able to sort of get to their goals a little faster? Or is it something where maybe you have to be like more specific with what they're figuring out and assessing what they're able to do to start to really build off that efficiently, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, and that's it, right? You have to start with that assessment and that evaluation, right? So, and then as you're working on understanding what you're doing for evaluation-based programming, you start to realize it's like, well, I need to be able to stand on one foot and balance before I can do it with my eyes closed, before I can do it with a heel raise, before I can hop on 2 feet, before I can hop on 1 foot. I need to be able to do a single leg squat before I can do X, Y, and Z, right? So you start to get a really good idea what, where that is. And that you want to build your workout program in that, right? So what I do is I have everything in levels. So if you remember from our programming from before, right? So basically everything would be level 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I would already know based upon the exercises and the equipment that I have, what fits in to that workout during this interval training, finisher type of phase for a person that fits into that level category, which is where the work comes in, right? So it's been a pretty cool experience for me, other than business-wise, of all the moving around that I've had to do. But all that moving around has required me to adapt my workouts and change everything I'm doing based upon the equipment that's available or the space that was available or whatever, because those things get into like how many people can you see at once and, that type of thing. If you have 4 of each machine, it's a lot different than when you have one piece of equipment, only one of those machines, right? So you basically are going to look at doing the same, maybe it's the same circuit, right, with less intensity, right? So maybe it's 10 seconds versus 30 seconds type of situation, right? And you're still doing the heavy rope jump rope, right? But the lower level person's not going to be able to maintain their mechanics for 30 seconds. Does that make sense? Right? So, and then even in that scenario, you have to assess and go, hey, is this the right thing? Maybe I was wrong, right? Because it's not every time that you give somebody an exercise, you still need to be assessing on make sure that they're where they need to be, because it's not 100% precision, right? So that's where you should always be. It's almost like you should always be assessing, if that makes sense, especially when it comes to a biomechanical standpoint, and especially when it comes to PT. I think in training we can get away with it a little bit more. Everything doesn't need to be perfect. You don't need to, necessarily, retract your scapula perfectly every single time that you're doing a row. You're not going to blow your shoulder out. But with a PT client, you may have a lot more problems because of that. So you want to make sure that you're a little bit more stringent on that technique, and especially when you're starting to push them into that finisher phase, right? Which you got to be really careful with your finishing type of programming with athletes that are coming back to sports, where I would use things that aren't going to be as sport specific as you're going to see in the sport specific or functional specific part of the action, because I've already fatigued them in that scenario. So that's one of the reasons why the heavy rope jump rope and the whips are really great, because they're not complicated movements for somebody that can do them, right? But they're going to create that finisher, that metabolic effect that I'm looking for. So for example, if I have an ACL or an Achilles repair, using the whips are a great way to do that. The battling ropes, right? Or medicine ball exercises for the upper body, so I can focus on that. Maybe I pair in some balance exercises or whatever for that ACL, but I'm not going to do reactive rebound jumping during that time that they need more precision when they're coming off of that. I'm not going to fatigue them with that. I'm going to do that during the functional training component, the training session. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Good question. Yeah. Anybody else got anything? Ben Jennings, I'd like to hear from you, just because I want to hear your soothing voice. I'm not sure if he's even still there. There he is. Yep.
No, I'm here, man. Yeah, no, it was good. It's a lot of dynamic thought to a lot of things that we take for granted, I think, in programming, for sure. Especially from the PT side, like you're talking about, but from the training side, which I've kind of gotten away from. So it's good.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, the reason why I wanted to really get into this with you guys, and all of this stuff that I'm going over is really helping me gauge what's valuable and what's not, what isn't. you know, I know that it's important to know this stuff and cover it, but I don't know how beneficial it is. And that's what I'm trying to get a gauge on with you guys as well. Right. That, you know, most of this idea, there's still some room for improvement and mastery with this type of stuff is my guess. Right. So when I sit down and make workout programs, this is what I'm thinking about. Like, this is what I do every single time that I'm making somebody a workout program. I look at the training session based upon this. The good part is I did this a long time ago, so I already have my workouts set up like this for the most part, and they always sequence in this manner. So it's easier for me to do now. Like I said, that's a big part of the startup process. You know, and I argue that you're better off doing that even on the PT side or the functional training side, and going ahead of time and going, okay, my typical 5 or 10 clients are going to fit into these categories, right? A shoulder, a neck, a hip, a back, whatever, right? Write out your plans for what you would think that a typical situation is going to be in a typical training program, you know, 1 to 2 a week, have it all written up. So then whenever you go back into you have a new client and you want to go back to create a new workout program, boom, the framework is already there. The infrastructure is already there. So you don't have to start from scratch, right? So you already know what basically you want to do. And then when you get those weird scenarios, then you can take time, extra time, you know, and really try to hone in on the specificity for what you need for that. And I find that that's one of the things that people don't do. They don't build a system for themselves like that, and it makes it a lot harder to be specific and customize with your programming because you don't have it kind of ahead of time. Which is what I've done. I have all that stuff for you guys here at some point. You know, that all the programs are already there in the assessments and everything. And also the assessment has a table that goes along with, you know, if you fail this exercise, right, or this test, here's these exercises to do to call. And then some of it, right, becomes an art, right, of, you know, again, this kind of qualitative, quantitative, the soft and the hard, software, hardware type of scenario, right, of being able to pair these things together. And basically, there's a difference between science and applied science, right? Science is gravity, right? There's nothing that we can do about it, right? Gravity exists, but how we use gravity in our programming is applied science, right? So it's something the thing that art and science commingling with one another, right? And you can't be afraid to make mistakes, and you can't be afraid to take risks and move forward because you have to learn. Right, so you just want to be as systematic and strategic about it as you're going, and that's ultimately what the reassessments allow you to do as well. So you want to make sure that you're getting those reassessments in, so you can look at how your programming is actually working over time. If you don't go back and look at those look at that reassessment component, you end up doing a lot of guessing,